going to talk about equipment. We've got Colin Dunlop, who's going to do this presentation. He is a Rigger B here on Vancouver Island. Many of you guys already know him. If you guys don't know him, you should. He's a good rigger, good guy, good skydiver, and has been doing it for a while.
Today we're going to be I'll be talking about equipment. We're just going to go over the SVI, what they want us to talk about. So starting with packing, the first thing we're going to talk about is packing to manufacturer's requirements. So most people will learn from other jumpers on how to pack, but everyone has their own way and they all got their little tricks. But the number one way you should pack your canopy is by how the manufacturer wants, because I say people are trying to slow down their openings. They're twisting up the tail a shitload because they want to open slower, but what they're actually doing is they're pulling the lines around when they're twisting because they're twisting it too much. Like for instance, the Saber 1, everybody's got their own Saber 1 techniques, but if you look at the manual and just don't overthink it, not saying trash pack it, but don't try too many tricks. It's already been figured out. So you're starting with your 3-line check to make sure that the brake lines, rear risers, front risers aren't twisted. Basically want the lines in the center of the pack job, material to the outside. Definitely want to check that your brakes are stowed properly, because a toggle fire can add to a malfunction pretty bad. You want your slider all the way down, meaning like against the canopy, not down against the risers. That would be bad. Line stows are the proper length, so 1 to 2 inches. Stow bands, you're using the right size stow bands. You're not using tiny stow bands when you should have the big ones. So for instance, PD, they tell you they want you to double stow everything. I've heard don't double stow the first 2 locking stows, but I've heard before is a bag lock's never hurt anyone unless they tried to land it. But hard openings have killed people. I think it was last year or the year before, there was a lady in the States who had like 20,000 skydives, had a heart opening, and it separated her aorta from her heart. She died on opening. So, yeah, double stone's not going to kill you unless you try and land the bag lock. All right, enough line between the risers and the bag. So 12 to 18 inches. If you have more than that, you're just adding more complications by having more line out. If it's too short, you're gonna have a tough time getting the risers and the D-bag sitting nicely in the packing tray. Next thing on here is closing loop, the proper length and in good condition. So I've seen some pretty bad ones last year. And if I find you with a bad one, I'm not going to replace it for you. I'm just going to cut it. But if you come up to me beforehand and ask for a closing loop, it's free. I don't care. It costs me nothing. Give it to you for free. And when we're looking at our closing loop, we're not just looking at the loop. We want to look down at the knot too. Take it right out. Make sure there is a washer on there. And you've got a double knot and then another little knot behind it to lock it. Not going to say who, but I found one. It was either last year or the year before, where the closing loop looked fine, but it had passed both the knots. It was hanging on just barely.
Literally by a thread.
Not even. All right, and then pilot chute bridle routed correctly. So what I started doing is, everyone calls it a pin check. I like to call it a bridle routing check, because we had one incident a couple years ago where a jumper had a pilot chute in tow. Before exiting and before getting in the plane, someone had checked it, but they looked at the pin. They didn't look at the bridle. And I took it home, hung it up. I could hang the rig from my inspection line and push it around without the pin popping. There was no way it was coming out. So look at the bridle, not just the pin. Pilot chute cocked. If it's a collapsible one, That's pretty straightforward, but you also need to make sure your kill line is the right length. Otherwise, it's, if it breaks, you're just gonna have a non-collapsible pilot chute. But if that line is worn enough that it's shrunk from the heat, then your pilot chute might not have enough drag to extract the D-bag, and gonna cause some problems there. And then last thing on the packing is pilot chute folded and stowed as per owner's manual. So once again, refer to the manual. Everyone's got their own way of packing the pilot chute. Just find the best way that works for you. But also, people have been doing this for many years, so just make sure you don't just skip. Don't make your own mistakes. Learn from other people's. Okay, so moving on to like maintenance for the harness container checks. No broken or frayed stitching. So looking at all the seams, a little bit of broken stitching is not going to do something, but a $5 fix now might cost you $50 or $100 if you don't fix it right away. Velcro's in good condition. Not a lot of rigs have Velcro all over it these days, but where it's important is your cutaway and reserve handles. If that's pretty loose, you could have a reserve handle, cutaway handle pop out and free fall. Not a good thing. Clean release cables, and they're not crooked as it says, meaning like kinks. Does anybody, I know you can't respond, but anyone know how often you should be checking your three rings and maintaining it? About a month, every month. So you should be pulling the cutaway handle, obviously get rid of your RSL first, pull the cutaway handle, inspect the cable for any nicks, burrs, stuff like that. And also you're gonna take your three rings and you're gonna twist them a little bit, massage the webbing so it doesn't have a memory anymore. Otherwise it might not release as easy. Touches back on closing loops here, pilot chute pouch. So you want to make sure your BOC is tight. At premature deployment in free fall, someone above you, be really bad. Not only for you, but for them. Also, if you're outside of the plane with a loose pilot chute pocket, your pilot chute leaves before you do. That's also a scary thought. Talking about the ripcord pocket, Velcro, we already talked about that. Three ring system in good condition. So same thing, you're looking for any wear on the stitching. Be a lot easier if I had a rig here that I can show you guys. Oh, there goes Gord, he's running. I'll touch back on that in a sec. The next point is keepers, present and in good condition. So I see a lot of people with like elastic bands on their rigs. That's going to cause your chest strap to wear out a lot faster. So if you need some keepers, let me know. I usually throw them on at every repack. All right, so Gord's got a rig here. You see? So we're looking at the three ring here. A lot of people are twisting their three ring to look for nicks or burrs. Not really necessary. We're basically looking through for the correct sequence in them. So we got the big one through the ring on the harness, smaller one through that, and then holding it close to the camera for Allison. And really important, this part would probably be the first to wear out on your set of risers, the Type 2A. And you're making sure there's no sharp edges on any of the grommets or particularly on the cable housing. That's a spot where you can find some rough stuff there. You just give it a feel. Can I cut this away just for a sec? I'll leave it in there. So looking at the handle, you can see a little bit of black stuff on there. It's kind of hard to see. The black stuff is just like dust, dirt like that. Every repack, we clean that for you. You want to make sure that the end is smooth. It's just a wire that's been cut off, and then the plastic's been smoothed over with the lighter. And then when you get to your 3 rings, as I was talking about exercising them, I'm going to take the 3 rings, massage them, just so they don't form a memory. And just looking for any general wear in there. That's pretty much it. 3 rings. I'll put that together after. I lubricate it every pack cycle. So if you're going to lubricate it, you're going to use food grade silicone, and that takes all that black stuff off. All right, RSL in good condition, meaning that the RSL shackle, this RSL shackle stays closed. You don't want it popping open in free fall or sometime when you may need it. Another thing that people don't think about too much is I've seen a couple rigs without having a proper tabbed pull on it. And if you got gloves on and it's winter and it's cold and you can't release that when you need to, say it's gusting pretty good on the ground and you can't get a hold of that, when you're getting pulled around on the ground, you might get dragged for a little bit. Hurt yourself. Main parachute checks. So you want to make sure your pilot chute handle is secure and available to you before you get in the plane. No rips or tears in the pilot chute. That's what's going to extract your whole canopy. And if you don't have a good pilot chute, you might as well not have the parachute. All right, so pin secure on bridle. So once again, just checking the stitching on that. The kill line is in good condition. Like I said, the more you use it, the more it shrinks. It's going to get shorter and shorter until there's eventually no drag on the pilot chute. Usually it wears out before that and just breaks. Grommets on your D-bag, they're secure and undamaged, so you want to feel them. Make sure they're not rough. You want to make sure they're fully set. So when I'm feeling a D-bag and I'm inspecting it, I'm kind of using my fingernail to pick at the edges of the grommet and make sure I can't get my fingernail under there. You can see sometimes it'll unseat a little bit. Grommets are super cheap to replace. Bridle attachment point secure. So where your bridle attaches to your main parachute, make sure it's hooked up correctly. Same thing, manufacturer's instructions. Also, if you can avoid having a repeat link in there, some are designed to just lark's head onto the canopy. You don't actually, if you get the metal out of there, that's preferred. So no broken stitching or damage on any of the lines. So I hung up my main this morning. As I'm walking up each line, you feel it for burrs. It may look fine, but you don't know, there could be something sharp in there, like a thorn if you drag your canopy on your way back to the hangar, which is going to end up causing more damage. Slider material in good shape. Have a good look each time you pack. You don't want your slider ripping in half. Very unlikely, it'd be pretty obvious if it was in that bad a condition, and I would assume the canopy would be pretty bad at that point. Connector links and bumpers are in good condition. So if you're using repeat links, you need to make sure you have a bumper on there, which is either the rubber or a piece of material that stops the slider from coming down the line super fast and hitting the repeat link. It's not going to damage the repeat link, but it's going to damage the slider, and that's when you're going to get those nicks, burrs, sharp edges in your grommets.
And that's going to wear down your lines faster.
Yeah, it just starts to destroy everything. Soft links, not worn, and they're attached correctly. So if everyone's familiar with a soft link, it's basically a piece of Spectra, and it can be stronger than a repeat link. But if you don't assemble it correctly, because it's a lot harder, each practice links comes with the instructions. If they're not set up properly, it's a bad time. And when it says soft links are not worn, that could mean little nicks in them, but also after a lot of wear, they start to feel really hard and plasticky. That's just from the friction and them melting, and is also going to reduce their strength.
So at what point do you have to replace them then? Is it nice that I'm the only one that can ask questions?
Yeah, Gord's helping me out here. So when would I replace them? If anytime I put on a new canopy, like I just bought a new canopy, $65 for slinks isn't that bad, and usually I just send the old ones with the old canopy.
Have you ever replaced the line set, replace the slinks?
Or if you just downsize, get a new canopy, don't use the shitty ones on there. Steering system checks. So toggles, secure, knotted, or finger trapped. So some canopies will come and they're just looped through the toggle and then tied, but not that hard. If you want, you can finger trap it in there, we can sew it in there, and then it's going to be smooth. You have less line flapping around with the excess, less worries. Velcro on your steering toggles. Not a lot of people have Velcro on their risers anymore if you can avoid it, because Velcro is going to tear apart your lines faster. They're going to wear. Even if you're super careful, there's still going to be a little damage. So Velcro-less risers, toggles with pins, that kind of stuff is ideal. The keeper ring is not corroded. So the guide ring on your risers, where you pull the cat's eye through and then set the brakes, you want to make sure that there's no rust on it, it's smooth. Otherwise, you're going to wear out your brake lines even faster, and brake lines are usually the first lines that need to be replaced because of all the extra friction of moving up and down. And one thing that not a lot of people worry about is their excess line keeper. Excess line is secure. So you jump in Campbell River, old man Paul's going to give you shit if you don't stow your excess brake line. I don't know if you guys have seen the video of the guy. He goes and just grabs his toggles without identifying them first, puts his hand through the excess, and basically just knots his steering line to his riser. And once it's under tension, you're not going to get it out. So you might as well avoid the whole problem by stowing it properly. And that's it for the CSVA. CSVA stuff. I also have another checklist that I go through. I'm not going to take too long to go through it, and it's going to be backwards for all you guys, so I hope you can read it. Basically, if you guys want to look at what we use, this is a very basic checklist for going over a reserve in Maine. That's available to you if you Google. So for me, I jump at Voodoo, but it's on the Rigging Innovations website. So if you Google, say, Voodoo Container Manual, and then go to the Rigging Innovations website, scroll down to the rigger information. I believe it's page 35 to page 37. Gives you a good checklist. We're going to check this stuff every time we do a reserve repack, but maybe have a look. And if you notice any damage to any of these parts beforehand, you can mention it and take care of the problem before it gets bigger. Another good point is get that stuff fixed before you get your reserve repack. It's a lot more of a pain in the ass for me to sew if I got to move a fully packed reserve around my sewing machine. Yeah, that's all I got for now. Thanks.
Coach, we'll stop.
All right, Gord, if you could mute yourself there, please, or I'll mute you. Thanks, Colin. So now, just so you guys know, if you do have a question while it is going on, or anyone's presenting, there should be somewhere on your device where you can put your hand up, raise your hand. I will see that you've raised your hand, and we can get to any questions thereafter. So bear with me because I did see Paige did raise her hand. So give me a second to find Paige so I can unmute her. Where in the world did you go, Paige? Sorry, guys. This is the technology part that I have no idea why it's not. Oh, here we go. So Paige, I am going to... So Paige has a question for you, and Paige, you should be unmuted.
Hey, so a question of mine, which I think everybody should know, is how to detect if the if your, sorry, it's been a long night. If your bridle line is too short, and Colin brought it up, but if you hold your pilot chute up, your hacky or your pull, whatever it is, should fall within, I believe it's 1 to 2 inches within that center line where the mesh meets with the material. Can you confirm that, Colin, and maybe let people know that that's how you check the length of your bridle line? Because if your bridle is spinning up a lot, that could be a sign that your line is the wrong length.
Paige, just so you know, I'm going to mute you now.
Thank you.
So if your pilot chute's spinning up every jump, that's usually because the kill line is too long. So it's not completely collapsing. So there's a couple ways you can do that. Sometimes they'll make them a little bit longer so that as it wears, it's only going to get better. I've heard from Brian Germain on one of his videos that you can actually take the silicone lubricant that we use for the closing loops, not the cutaway cables. It's a clear liquid, and you can put it on your kill line, and that'll allow it to travel through the bridle smoother and effectively collapse it better.
So what's a good way to check if it's in good working order, like not too long or not too short?
So I don't have a good answer for that.
Do you hold it by the bridle where it connects to the pilot chute, and then you can put your hand in there and grab the kill line? It should have a little bit slack.
Yeah. So when you cock your pilot chute, there's lines there's a tape that will go from the handle to where the bridle attaches. And then once you pull it tight, that'll be tight, but there should be a little bit of slack in your kill line. The best test is basically to cock your pilot chute, throw it up in the air, and see if it catches a little bit of air. I don't know if that really answers your question, Paige, but I can't even hear you.
I have to unmute her, so just bear with me. There you go, Paige.
Thanks, Allison. So yeah, something Colin Cox was telling me for people to tell if that kill line is too short or too long is if you hold it up and your pull is within, I believe he said 2 inches above or below the mesh, where the mesh meets the fabric, that is acceptable. But if it's higher or lower than that, then it's not within the regulated measure. And that's a good quick test that a lot of people can do to see if their kill line is the right length.
Yeah, if you start getting longer and the handle, when it's fully pulled out, is further from the center line, you're going to start getting less drag as it goes.
Cool.
Yeah, I don't got much more on that.
Awesome. So I had asked, it doesn't look like anyone else, any other questions? Paige, I'm muting you again. Cool. Colin, thank you very much. I wish I could figure out the whole poll thing because it's kind of cool, but oh well, not everything works.